I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I had come to rely so much.
A fairy tale ending to a story that was often anything but. The king and queen have known each other.
In addition to all of her royal duties, Queen Consort Camilla has had to deal with some difficult family losses over the last several months.
Moments ago, King Charles shocked the world by announcing that Queen Camilla will surrender her royal title after a missing sapphire brooch once owned by Princess Diana was traced back to her private estate, igniting a royal scandal like no other. What really happened behind those palace doors? Was this a tragic mistake, or a secret finally exposed? Could one jewel shatter the monarchy's image and rewrite the royal line of succession? Stay with us, because the truth behind this royal shock isn't just scandalous, it's historic, and it's only just beginning. The jewel that sparked a storm. It began quietly, long before anyone realized the crown was about to face one of its darkest moments. In the autumn of 2025, as London prepared for the Grand Heritage Gala, the royal household appeared calm. Queen Camilla was set to join King Charles, wearing Queen Mary's diamond crown and jewels, once owned by Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. To the world, it seemed like another elegant royal evening, but behind the palace walls, tension was quietly rising, and it started with a single missing jewel. A rare sapphire brooch, identical to one Diana had worn years ago, suddenly appeared at a private auction in Geneva. Experts soon confirmed its engraving matched a piece long believed to be secured within the royal collection. When investigators traced its ownership, the trail led to Raymill House, Queen Camilla's private estate.
Raymill House are in the countryside, but even when Charles and Camilla are in London, they often stay in separate residences.
At first, aides dismissed the link as an error, but Princess Anne wasn't convinced. She called for a quiet audit of the royal jewelry records, which uncovered missing files, conflicting reports, and valuation notes that hinted at irregular transfers. Meanwhile, Prince William and Princess Catherine were torn between family loyalty and their duty to the crown. They urged King Charles to seek answers, even if the truth was painful. For the king, the discovery cut deep. These jewels weren't just treasures. They carried the legacy of his mother and the story of the monarchy itself. Determined to know the truth, Charles ordered a discreet investigation. A formal request went to Geneva, and when the response arrived, it confirmed the worst. The brooch was genuine, and its sale was tied to accounts connected to Camilla's estate. From that moment, Clarence House changed. Meetings became quiet, schedules shifted, and even the Royal Jewelry Registry, usually kept in the Tower of London, was moved for a private review. Those close to the crown knew something serious was unfolding. The investigation that shook the crown. When the final report reached King Charles, the evidence was undeniable. What once sounded like rumor had become fact. Princess Anne pressed her brother to protect the monarchy's integrity, while William and Catherine began drafting a confidential plan in case the story went public. Inside the palace, silence replaced ceremony. Camilla, once preparing for a night of royal glamour, now faced a growing uncertainty. The quiet realization that the crown's weight can turn from honor to burden in a single moment. By sunrise, the situation had reached a point of no return. Investigators in Geneva had completed their final report. The sapphire brooch had been sold with authorization from Queen Camilla's private office. Whether or not she was personally aware no longer mattered. In the eyes of the public, perception had already become truth. Inside the palace, emotions ran high. Prince William urged his father to act in defense of the crown's integrity, while King Charles wrestled with the weight of both duty and history. Within a day, Princess Anne and William presented their findings in a formal meeting with the king. Catherine joined them, wearing a simple cream ensemble and Diana's engagement ring, a quiet symbol of legacy amid rising uncertainty. The discussion ended without a clear resolution, but one difficult step was decided. Queen Camilla would be summoned before the Privy Council to address the inquiry directly. As this unfolded, rumors began to slip beyond the palace walls. Cameras captured boxes being moved into Clarence House, and speculation spread rapidly. Headlines questioned the future of the monarchy, with one striking phrase repeated across news outlets. Diana's jewels resurface. Is history repeating itself? Amid the storm of media attention, Catherine became the calm center of public focus. At a charity event days later, she appeared wearing a simple pearl pendant, a choice that reminded many of Queen Elizabeth's quiet grace. Commentators praised her composure, calling her a modern reflection of royal dignity. But despite her poise, one question hung in the air, whispered across drawing rooms and debated online. How much truth could the monarchy endure before it began to fracture? Before we move further into this story, what do you think? Will King Charles protect his love or his legacy? And where are you watching from today? London, Sydney, Manila, or New York? Let us know in the comments below, because this royal storm has captured attention across the world. Then came the moment that turned whispers into thunder. On the evening of October 11th, the royal household released a brief statement. Her Majesty, the Queen Consort,
Once known as the other woman, Camilla is now the queen. Kind of. The new king's darling wife has become the Queen Consort.
is assisting with an internal inquiry regarding the provenance of select royal heirlooms. It was a calm announcement on the surface, but inside the palace, everyone knew what those words truly meant. The crisis had reached the throne itself. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere grew heavy. At Clarence House, a formal meeting was arranged in the Maple Room, the same place where King Charles once rehearsed his coronation speech. He sat at the head of the polished mahogany table with Princess Anne to his right and Prince William and Catherine to his left. They were no longer gathered as family, but as witnesses to the crown's integrity. The ceremony and tradition that once defined those walls began to fade, replaced by a tense silence. What had started as a question over a single jewel had become something far greater, a test of loyalty, truth, and the very strength of the monarchy itself. The air inside Clarence House felt frozen, heavy with silence and tension. Queen Camilla entered with her private secretary, her face pale and unreadable. The pearls she often wore were gone, replaced by a simple gold chain. She took her seat at the far end of the long table where King Charles, Princess Anne, Prince William, and Princess Catherine were already waiting. In front of them lay a single folder marked "Confidential." Inside were documents from Geneva confirming that the missing sapphire brooch had been sold under Camilla's authorization. Whether she knew about it or not no longer mattered. The damage was done, and the world was already watching. Camilla's fall and the king's reckoning. The atmosphere was thick with unease. Princess Anne stayed composed, firm but calm, reminding everyone that the issue wasn't just about jewels, it was about trust. Catherine, quiet until then, spoke softly, saying the royal heirlooms carried memories and meaning far beyond gold or gems. When one was lost, part of their history disappeared with it. Her words settled in the room like a quiet truth. By midnight, the decision was made. The Privy Council would meet at dawn, and a public statement would follow. It would confirm that Queen Camilla's royal title was being suspended while the investigation continued. Polite words masking a painful reality. After everyone left, King Charles remained alone in the Maple Room. Across from him, the Queen Mary's crown shimmered in the dim light, its diamonds scattering reflections across the walls. For a long time, he simply stared at it, the weight of duty and history pressing down harder than ever. Before sunrise, Camilla returned quietly to Raymil House, leaving Clarence House behind, not as queen, but as a woman at the center of a royal storm. The estate that once represented Camilla's independence now felt like quiet exile. In the dim drawing room, a dying fire flickered beneath a framed photograph of her coronation beside King Charles. After a long, motionless moment, the frame was turned face down, leaving only the faint glow of embers behind. That night, the royal family's private lines carried tense, clipped conversations. Within Windsor's walls, it was understood that the decision had been made, not to punish, but to protect. Still, protection came at a price, and the cost this time was measured in loyalty and trust. At dawn on October 12th, the bells at the castle rang with a colder tone than usual. The sound felt ceremonial, yet sorrowful, echoing through corridors heavy with silence. At Clarence House, William and Catherine arrived first, their expressions composed but distant. A revised succession document rested in Catherine's hands, a quiet signal that the monarchy was preparing for another transition. The institution had survived wars, scandals, and abdications, but this was different. This wasn't about power or rebellion. It was about conscience, something that couldn't be silenced by titles or crowns. By the day's end, the truth the palace had tried to contain began to surface. Rumors spread, followed by confirmation. The woman once crowned queen would no longer hold the title. Her reign had ended, leaving behind only memories and heirlooms that outlived her name. The next morning, October 13th, unfolded beneath a steel-gray sky. Reporters gathered at the gates of Clarence House, their breath visible in the morning chill. Inside, marble halls echoed with the quiet urgency of staff preparing for a historic statement. At exactly 10 o'clock, King Charles entered the Grand Hall. His posture was formal, his expression distant, and his uniform immaculate, a symbol of the duty he had always upheld. Beside him, the Queen Mary's crown gleamed under the lights, its diamonds reflecting both beauty and burden. The hall filled with courtiers, journalists, and a small circle of family members. The atmosphere was heavy, more like a farewell than an address. When the king spoke, his tone carried the weight of centuries. Calm, steady, yet filled with unspoken regret. The announcement was brief, but its meaning unmistakable. Camilla would step away from royal duties and relinquish her title. The words reached the world within minutes, flashing across every screen and headline. Crown in crisis. King confirms Camilla's withdrawal. Outside, the public's reaction was divided, a mix of sorrow, relief, and disbelief. At Kensington Palace, floral tributes appeared once again at the gates. White lilies, handwritten notes, and a single sapphire brooch replica, symbolizing a circle of history quietly closing. Inside Clarence House, as the crowd's noise faded, King Charles remained still before the empty lectern. The light caught on the crown beside him, its reflection fractured yet enduring. Legacy, forgiveness, and the crown reborn. King Charles turned toward his son, signaling that the moment had arrived. William stepped forward, carrying a velvet-bound document, the official royal decree already signed by the king and the Privy Council. Catherine, standing beside him, offered a quiet gesture of strength, grounding him amid the weight of what was unfolding. When the king addressed the nation, his tone carried the gravity of history. His final words marked the moment as one of reflection, not spectacle. A reminder that the monarchy's endurance has always depended less on power and more on principle. When he finished, he lowered his head, visibly burdened by the weight of the decision. Breaking from formality, Princess Anne moved toward her brother and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Cameras captured the scene, an image that would come to define the day, a family holding itself together amid silent fracture. Moments later, William and Catherine exited the hall, their car rolling slowly past the palace gates through a storm of camera flashes and murmured support from the crowd. For many watching, that quiet departure symbolized something more. The moment the future king and queen emerged, not through triumph, but through sacrifice.
The future King and Queen of England, Prince William and Kate Middleton, looking ever so regal at their latest royal engagement.
Miles away at Raymill House, Camilla watched the broadcast alone. The television's flickering light reflected across the room as news anchors confirmed her official withdrawal from royal duties. There were no tears, no visible reaction, only a stillness that seemed to swallow the space around her. The symbols of power she once carried now rested quietly on a nearby table, their meaning spent. Back in Clarence House, King Charles dismissed his attendants and entered the Maple Room, where the Queen Mary's crown glowed faintly beneath glass. He stood before it in silence, his reflection fractured across its surface, light and shadow blending as if history itself were judging him. Outside, the bells of St. James's Palace rang 12 times.
500 years, St. James's Palace has been at the heart of royal history. It has witnessed key moments from the private lives of monarchs over the centuries,
their echo rolling through London like a slow, solemn tide. For the public, it was the sound of reckoning. For the monarchy, it marked the beginning of something new, a fragile rebirth forged from loss. By nightfall, London seemed caught between celebration and mourning. Crowds gathered outside Clarence House, candles and flags in hand, their voices soft beneath the chill of October air. Some carried portraits of Diana, believing her memory lingered over this turning point in royal history. Inside, the mood was somber. The royal family had fulfilled their duty, but the emotional cost was beyond measure. King Charles spent the evening alone in his private library, surrounded by silence and half-finished notes from speeches he once wrote about unity and grace. The royal decree lay on the desk beside him, the ink still dark, its consequences already reshaping the legacy of his reign. Princess Anne entered quietly, her presence steady but weary. She understood what history would make of this day, not as a scandal or spectacle, but as the moment when the crown chose preservation over pride, conscience over comfort. History doesn't shed tears, but people do. At Kensington Palace, William and Catherine faced the emotional aftershocks of the king's announcement. Overnight, public sympathy had shifted toward them. Across social media, messages poured in praising Catherine as the people's queen and admiring William for honoring his mother's memory. Yet behind the palace doors, it didn't feel like triumph. What the world saw as a victory felt more like survival, quiet, heavy, and deeply personal. The media frenzy showed no sign of slowing. Every network replayed the king's address, analyzing his voice, his expression, even the brief silence between his words. Headlines split between sorrow and strength, some calling it a tragedy, others a reckoning. International outlets joined in, framing the moment as both a royal crisis and a moral turning point for Britain's monarchy. At Raymill House, Camilla's world had grown smaller. The estate gates stayed shut, her staff reduced to only a few loyal aides. Away from the cameras, she kept her silence, no interviews, no statements. What had once been a peaceful retreat now felt like quiet confinement. Late at night, she walked through her garden, where the last roses of autumn were beginning to fade, their petals falling one by one into the cold grass. Back in London, dawn brought a symbolic gesture. A royal courier arrived at Kensington Palace with a velvet-lined box sealed with the king's insignia. Inside rested the Queen Mary's crown, its Cullinan diamonds glimmering softly in the morning light. The message was unmistakable. It was now entrusted to Catherine for safekeeping, a quiet sign of continuity and trust. The crown's weight was no longer about gold or jewels, but about legacy and responsibility. The following day, Westminster Abbey opened its doors for a private service of reflection, attended only by the immediate royal family. There were no cameras, no public ceremony, only the sound of the choir filling the ancient hall. As the hymns echoed through the vaulted ceiling, the rain outside began to fall, streaking the stained glass windows like silver threads of sorrow. For the first time in decades, the monarchy stood exposed, humbled yet still standing. The scandal had stripped away its grandeur, but not its meaning. What remained was something quieter, more human, a reminder that even the crown, in all its brilliance, endures not through perfection, but through its ability to face truth and begin again. The world saw an ending, but inside the palace, it felt like the beginning of a new and painful chapter. As dusk settled over London, the bells of Westminster rang softly, not in triumph, but in remembrance. At Birkhall, King Charles sat alone by the window, the cool wind drifting through the room. On his desk rested a single letter sealed in royal wax, addressed simply to my sons. It carried one quiet truth. The crown's real treasures were not jewels, but honesty, compassion, and restraint. Without them, even gold loses its shine. In London, crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace, waiting for a glimpse of William and Catherine. When they appeared for their first public engagement since the crisis, the atmosphere changed. The applause wasn't for royalty, it was for resilience. Catherine's soft gray dress shimmered in the fading light. Her bracelet, once worn by Queen Elizabeth, a small symbol of continuity amid change. Away from the spotlight, Camilla watched the news from Raymill House. The television screen faded to black, leaving only silence in the room. On the mantel sat her coronation photo, once turned face down, now upright again. It no longer looked like defiance, but quiet acceptance. In the end, maybe forgiveness, like truth, always takes time. The crown didn't survive because it was perfect. It survived because it had the strength to face its own imperfections and keep standing. This wasn't just a story about royalty. It was about humanity, about choices, integrity, and the weight of doing what's right when it's hardest. True power isn't measured by titles or treasures, but by the courage to protect what truly matters and the wisdom to let go when needed. The real gems in life aren't made of gold or diamonds. They're made of values, honesty, and heart. Perhaps that's the legacy King Charles wanted to leave behind. That greatness isn't found in crowns or castles, but in conscience. What about you? Do you believe he made the right choice? Or was there another way? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. London, Sydney, Toronto, or beyond. Because the story of the crown doesn't just belong to history, it belongs to everyone still learning what legacy truly means.